So, what are free trade agreements, and how can businesses leverage them to grow internationally?
Basically, they're agreements between one or more nations. With regards, multilateral is a good one. Yeah.
True.
As to how countries trade and exchange goods between themselves. So how can businesses leverage them to grow? So, firstly, it can optimize supply chain. So as a manufacturer or a supplier, it can benefit you because of the true origin of the goods from a number of different countries within any free trade agreement area.
Yeah.
The second couple of points, secondly, that it actually helps you reduce your overall cost by being able to deploy your supply chains in lowest cost countries for your kind of products. And it also helps kind of reduce any tax liabilities that are associated with those. And finally, it helps you simplify the whole customs clearance process. They can have requirements in there that remove many of the restrictions or requirements between countries within the free trade agreement.
So there's two big ones, right? So the first one we talked about is the RCEP, or the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. It's quite a mouthful.
Yes.
I don't know what these trade negotiators are thinking.
Yeah.
They need to work on some branding. But anyway, RCEP. So RCEP is between 15 countries in the region, 15 economies, I should say. And so that's an important one. The second one, and this one is an even bigger mouthful, so I hope I can get it right, is CPTPP, which stands for the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. So this one is interesting because there's a couple of economies that you might not necessarily think about that are in Latin America that are part of it.
Yep.
So it's the Pacific part, so Peru, Mexico, and Chile. So for businesses that are interested in Latin America or producing in Latin America or these countries in Latin America, it's an interesting one.
Canada as well.
That's true. But then I think for this region, of course, the superstar for FTAs is ASEAN. ASEAN, otherwise known as the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Lots of acronyms. So ASEAN itself is a free trade agreement. It's a bloc between 10 Southeast Asian countries. But ASEAN itself, as a bloc, has FTAs with other countries. So some notable ones being Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, China, just to name a few. So ASEAN is really the big, I'd say the big player in the region, if you will, from a free trade agreement point of view.
And with all of these free trade agreements, is it fair to say that customers should look in a lot more detail in these free trade agreements because there's a lot of overlap between many of them?
Yeah.
And the benefits for particular types of products can differ quite significantly. So it's worth shopping around.
So I'll add to that, there's a whole lot of tariff lines that's applicable to free trade agreements, and between the different free trade agreements, tariffs are different. So always check to ensure that you're enjoying the best tariff from a free trade agreement. Wow. Okay, so for CPTPP, I'm going to cheat a bit. I have some stats on this and I'm going to bring it out. Okay, let me see. So CPTPP is the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. It includes countries Australia, Canada, Japan, Mexico, New Zealand, Singapore, Vietnam, Peru, Malaysia, and Chile, right? I think for businesses to take note, the CPTPP creates a trading bloc of 11 countries that together represents 13.5% of global GDP and 495 million consumers.
All right, Brendan, you're a trade expert.
No?
Enough.
All right.
So what else do you know about CPTPP?
Canada, being one of a larger trading nation, they eliminating most of the duties or tariff for Canada.
Nice.
Yeah.
Canada, who knew?
Place to be.
Place to be.
So if you're a business, you might be wanting to source from Canada. First, you have to identify whether or not there are tax benefits towards qualifying for a free trade agreement. Therefore, research or find a service provider or a consultant that can support you identifying the tax reduction benefits. You would also need to actually understand how to qualify, for example, identifying whether or not your goods do qualify for preferential treatment, country of origin then comes into play, getting the certificate of origin also comes into play.
So fun fact, because we're trade nerds, is the certification is actually different by FTAs, right? So for some FTAs, you actually have to like go to a body and get an actual certificate of origin. It's a little bit of a cumbersome process.
Yeah.
But other FTAs, you can actually self-certify. So you can put on your commercial invoice, you know, I self-certify that I meet this FTA.
Yeah.
So it actually depends on the FTA.
So one key thing to remember is understand what the rules of origin are within the free trade agreement. And that by complying with those means you can leverage the benefits of that free trade agreement.
Correct. And then I think again we'll have to take note that after qualifying, do be aware of the regulatory requirements on maintaining proper documentation of the trade across the economies, participating economies, for audit purposes, for compliance purposes. So I think these are the steps that business have to take note of. And of course, if you don't have the expert to actually support your business in doing so, just look for UPS to actually support your business to actually understand free trade agreements.